Hello, my name is Charles Pyle from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'd like to ask you to expound on your view of risk in the financial world. And I ask that against the background of what appear to be a number of inconsistencies between your view of risk and the conventional view of risk. I mentioned that in a recent article you pointed out an inconsistency in the use of beta as a measure of risk, which is a common standard. And I mentioned that derivatives are dangerous, and yet you feel comfortable playing in derivatives through Salomon Brothers, and betting on hurricanes is dangerous, and yet you feel comfortable playing with hurricanes through insurance companies. So it appears that you have some view of risk that's inconsistent with what would appear on the face of it to be the conventional view of risk.
Well, we do define risk as the possibility of harm or injury, and in that respect, we think it's inextricably wound up in your time horizon for holding an asset. I mean, if your risk is that you're going, if you intend to buy XYZ Corporation at 11:30 this morning and sell it out before the close today, I mean, that is, in our view, that is a very risky transaction, because we think 50% of the time you're going to suffer some harm or injury. If you have a time horizon on a business, we think the risk of buying something like Coca-Cola at the price we bought it at a few years ago is essentially so close to nil in terms of our prospective holding period. But if you ask me the risk of buying Coca-Cola this morning and you're going to sell it tomorrow morning, I say that's a very risky transaction. Now, as I pointed out in the annual report, it became very fashionable in the academic world, and then that spilled over into the financial markets, to define risk in terms of volatility, of which beta became a measure. But that is no measure of risk. The risk in terms of our super cat business is not that we lose money in any given year. We know we're going to lose money in some given day, that is for certain, and we're extremely likely to lose money in a given year. Our time horizon of writing that business, would be at least a decade, and we think the probability of losing money over a decade is low. So we feel that in terms of our horizon of investment, that is not a risky business, and it's a whole lot less risky than writing something that's much more predictable. Interesting thing is that using conventional measures of risk, something whose return varies from year to year between plus 20% and plus 80% is riskier as defined than something whose return is 5% a year every year. We just think the financial world has gone haywire in terms of measures of risk. We look at what we do. We are perfectly willing to lose money on a given transaction, arbitrage being an example, any given insurance policy being another example. We are perfectly willing to lose money on any given transaction. We are not willing to enter into transactions in which we think the probability of doing a number of mutually independent events but of a similar type has an expectancy of loss. And we hope that we are entering into our transactions where our calculations of those probabilities have validity. And to do so, we try to narrow it down. There are a whole bunch of things we just won't do because we don't think we can write the equation on them. But we basically, Charlie and I, by nature, are pretty risk averse, but we are very willing to enter into transactions. If we knew it was an honest coin, and someone wanted to give us 7 to 5 or something of the sort on one flip, how much of Berkshire's net worth would we put on that flip? Well, we would. It would sound like a big number to you. It would not be a huge percentage of the net worth, but it would be a significant number. We will do things when probabilities favor us. Charlie?
Yeah, I would say we try and think like Fermat and Pascal, as if they'd never heard of modern finance theory. I really think that a lot of modern finance theory can only be described as disgusting.
question about Berkshire being I think was it Rich Man's Mutual Fund or something like that. We don't look at it that way at all. We look at it as a collection of businesses, and ideally, we would own all of those businesses. So it's to the extent that a mutual fund owns stock in a lot of companies and diversifies among businesses, and we try to own a lot of businesses ourselves. I guess that's true, but I guess you could say the same thing of General Electric or an operation like that. We are more prone to buy pieces of businesses than the typical manager, but we are trying to do, in a sense, the same thing Jack Welch is trying to do at General Electric, which is try to own a number of first-class businesses. He gets to put the imprint of his own management, which I think is very good, on those businesses, and we are more hands-off both in the businesses we own outright and in the ones we own pieces of. But we're going at it the same way, and General Electric has been very successful under Jack's leadership in doing it his way. We think in terms of what we bring to the game and the problems of putting money to work all the time that our own system is, will work best for us. Charlie?
Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that.
Zone 1.